beats Pelosi. Off the wall to Harris. Harris has got Pelosi. Harris to Pelosi. Shot. He scores! Chris Pelosi!
And Patra trying to drive in on that right wing side. Patra in. Scores! Matt Patra in overtime.
Willis took it right off his stick. Sends one through. They score! First career goal for the Bruins draft pick, Donald Millis. Back to the blue line. Cowan has it, looking for the return feed. Cowan lets it go back to the point. Shot!
Bills were without all of their World Junior guys for that against Simon Fraser. BC played him Sunday. Good pass ahead. There's Yelvik. He scores! Didn't need an exhibition.
Will come up with it. Ross Schwab flips it out to center. Now McKinney gets chased with Harrison. Harrison to the backhand. Score! A deft touch.
Watch out. Nelson steals. Walks in. Scores! 6-2. Jackson Nelson has the hat trick.
In a Crosby line. Padula wins that back. Now he's going to waltz it.
Welcome in, folks, to episode 2, or the next part of our new series of the Dom.Hockey Podcast, here in partnership with What's Brewing on the 6342 Productions Network. I am your host, Chris Nozick, joined as I am every show, my good friend, Dom Tiano. Dom, how are you today?
I'm okay, Chris. As some people might remember, it was 2 years ago today that I had a very serious heart attack that doctors told me I was lucky to have survived. I remember getting rushed to University Hospital in London and getting 4 stents inserted into my heart and being transferred back to Stratford, and the cardiologist saying how lucky I was. And my son kind of laughed at him and said, he's a stubborn old man. It's going to take more than a heart attack to stop him. So anytime I can sit down with you and talk hockey, whether it's on this new show on Sunday nights or our regular show on Tuesdays, is always a pleasure and something I'm thankful for. And, I'm here. And, you had a very hectic and busy weekend yourself moving, as people might be able to tell from the background. And I reached out to you this morning and said, look, man, if you need to postpone, we can postpone it. And you said, no, we're doing this. And here we are. How did it go? How was the move?
It's been hectic. Me and my girlfriend, we are exhausted physically, barely moving today. We were moving stuff from 9 a.m. yesterday. And we did what we thought was going to be one last little tidy up trip last night around 11 p.m. We ended up having to go back, get a few more things this morning, but it's been a long 48 hours and very exhausting time frame. But no way was I going to postpone this show, because I know how much you and I both look forward to doing it. The thing that really sucks about it is that I haven't been able to sit down and watch the Prospect Challenge games. But as we talked about last week, we talked about it on Tuesday. Not a lot that we can take away from this. Have you had a chance to watch those games at all?
Yeah. I mean, when you consider that there's 11 invites, there really isn't a whole lot of prospects playing, right? I mean, none of the goal, half the team, over half the team are invites. But, getting to see some takes on some players. Nice to see that Brett Harrison has turned a corner. John Farinacci is, what he was at the beginning of last season before he hit a brick wall. Riley Duran is coming as advertised. Jackson Edward You can see why he's going to be a fan favorite once he develops. There's a lot of good things and some disappointments, but it is what it is. It's one small tournament.
Right. And as we've had tried to hammer home last week, you can't just make a decision on a player based off of one tournament, one weekend, one training camp, one development camp, 3 days or whatever. You have to look at the whole body of work. And
Yep.
the guys that you mentioned, Harrison and Edward and guys like Kuntar and Farinacci, like this matches their body of work. So it's just another step in the right direction for them. But there is one thing I want to put to bed as far as questions that we got it a couple weeks ago on one of the shows. I've heard other shows talking about it. Who's a dark horse to come out of camp? No one.
Yeah, it's
No one. Because if you look at how this roster breaks down, there are guys that we know are going to be on this roster, and that's half of it. The other half are guys that they're likely to be on the roster in some capacity in one way, shape, or form, and that list takes up the rest of the roster and then a couple spots. So for a guy like Riley Durant, John Farinacci, Trevor Kuntar, a perfect example would be Jackson Edward. In order for him to even have a shot at making this team, he's got to jump over at least 3 defenders.
at least, yeah.
And
Definitely.
that's so far-fetched from happening that it doesn't behoove him in his development to do that to him unless he completely forces your hand. And even
And I don't see that happening.
there is
It's
at that point, there's no one, no one's Matt Poitras from last year.
no. What you're looking for is seeing that these guys have taken the right step, are heading in the right direction, and about being prepared for the upcoming season, so that they are the best that they can be, and in the event of needing a call up, are ready for that call up.
Right. And because we saw last year in Merkulov's call up, he wasn't ready. And it's okay that he wasn't ready. He is, 23, 24 years old.
Yeah.
Those were his first 4 professional games. But let's not act like he wasn't given the same opportunity that Poitras was given, that Poitras was ready for, that he wasn't. It's not a knock on him to say he wasn't ready then. We need to see more that he's ready now.
And he'll be given every opportunity, as with Fabian Lysell. Now that I mentioned Fabian Lysell, we got to stray off course here for a minute, because
Let's do it.
I've contacted some Russian friends, some Swedish friends, some Czech friends, because of the Americanization of names. So, for instance, Adam Mitura is from Czechia. In the WHL, they Americanized or Canadianized his name to Mitura, which is what I've been calling him. On the play-by-play the last couple of games at the Prospects Challenge, they've been calling him Mahura. Okay, so I reached out to a Czech friend who said the actual pronunciation of his name is Menyekura. There's an N in there that doesn't appear. So with Fabian Lysell, it's not Fabian and it's not Lysell. It's Fabian Lysell.
Huh.
Yeah. And for Georgi Merkulov, from day one, I've been calling him Georgi Merkulov. That's his it's a hard G, 2 hard G's, not soft G's. That's in their native tongue. Obviously, we're going to Americanize them or Canadianize them as things go forward.
Yeah, but I'm glad you clarified that, because there are a lot of different pronunciations, and obviously my understanding is a lot of the players understand and don't really put too much thought into it. but some players every once in a while will sit there and go, no, I want you to say it this way.
Yeah, Brad Marchand as an example.
Yep, Marchand. And then was it Ilya Samsonov has jumped a couple times.
Yeah.
Samsonov, and that kind of thing. So obviously it's up to the player how they want to be known, but it's nice. It is good though to get the background though. I didn't think of it. So where I know this was a big week for our show because you wanted to go over your projections after. So real quick, I'm going to pull up. Last week we went over this graphic, kind of the chances of some of these non-pro prospects in the Bruins system and where they project out to be as far as Bruins careers, as far as NHL careers. And then you had sent me another graphic for this week for your stat projection. Is there any background that you want to give before I pull that graphic up?
Yeah. So there's a small percentage of people that still think that this is a joke. Yet, some of those people will also use NHL equivalent when trying to project stats for the NHL. So it's the same thing. But I've developed my own system, which I might add one NHL team uses to project production for non-professional players, even when jumping from one league to another. For an example, we'll go back to last year. Beckett Hendrickson projected 28 goals, 34 assists. He actually got 27 of the 28 and got 37 assists over the 34 projected. Christopher Pelosi projected 33 goals. He only got 21. Projected 29 assists. He got 34. Well, people say that's a joke because he just didn't. Well, okay, but my argument is, why did it work for Beckett Hendrickson and why did it not work for Chris Pelosi?
Right.
They were line mates for the majority of the season. And a lot of it is based on who their line mates are. So to me, that tells me Beckett Hendrickson achieved what is expected of him, whereas Chris Pelosi did not.
Right. Now, he wasn't like crazy far away.
No.
And in some instances, you have to look at, did they miss time due to injury? Or I know we talked about Ty Gallagher's stats from a couple years ago where you were pretty much spot on for him. And then last year, completely off. What changed? Well, he basically became a seventh defenseman and his minutes dropped from, 15, 16 a night down to like 7.
If that, most nights.
That's a huge factor.
Yeah.
So, of course, your numbers are going to be off on some cases. It's a matter of, like you said, did they just miss the mark and underachieve? Did they completely exceed expectations? Because in some instances, maybe the smaller ice for someone coming over from Europe, they adjust to it a lot more than you anticipate. And instead, they exceed the numbers, or in some cases, or maybe they got power play time that you weren't anticipating because the normal power play, quarterback got hurt. And so now their numbers are up. So like the numbers are there, but you also got to look into them too. It's not just, they hit the numbers. Hooray. They did what they were supposed to. You got to look at everything around it, which, you and I have had those conversations a number of times. So you ready for me to pull it up?
Yeah, we'll go through them one by one. If anybody has any questions on that player, pop them up on the screen. So
Absolutely.
It might be hard for people to see that, but we'll go through it. First up is Elliot Grunwald, projected for 3 goals, 8 assists with Quinnipiac as a freshman. So the Bruins obviously believe that there's some potential there with him. They traded up in the draft to make sure that they have a shot at him. Is 3 goals and 8 assists really that bad, considering he's a freshman on the younger side, going into a program where he might not get the top quality offensive opportunities that his teammates are going to get. So I think 3 goals, 8 assists is very respectable for him. But you know what? He has the potential to outdo that. So it all depends on whether he beats one of his teammates out for some better offensive opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, also to your point, he was a 4th-round draft pick defenseman. So, like, we're not talking about a guy who's on the ice to produce a bunch of points. Let's see how he helps mitigate the opposition in preventing points. Like, in some instances, and it's almost more important the goals that you stop than the ones that you are a part of, because like Brandon Carlo, every team would love to have Brandon Carlo. His offensive output is minimal at best, year in and year out, but he is one of the top 3 to 5, we'll say, because this isn't an argument that we're going to have right now, but he's one of the top 3 to 5 defensemen, shutdown defensemen in the NHL. So as a defenseman, if you can stop the puck from going in your net,
you're doing your job.
Yeah, the production that you have, not everybody's going to be Cale Makar. It is what it is. But if you can shut the opposition down, everybody loves you. Seidenberg, Carlo, so on and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in that new lineup for him. And then next, we were just talking about him, you have Christopher Pelosi. Looks like 9 goals forecasted and 14 assists.
16 assists.
Oh, I'm sorry, 16.
Yeah, and not bad for another freshman. I guess we'll get to Hendrickson further down. I think he's gonna. He's not going to do as well as Hendrickson, but Pelosi, again, going to a good program with Quinnipiac, may not get the top offensive opportunities, but he's going to get some offensive opportunities. And if he can meet those numbers, I think we can call it a successful freshman season. Anything above that is gravy. That means that to me, he's probably a little bit ahead of schedule. And, again, time will tell for a 3rd round, 92nd overall pick in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't, when you're drafting that low, you're hoping to find some diamonds in the rough. And if he can target what seem to be fairly reasonable numbers, even as a freshman, that's a promising start. That's the biggest thing is you're looking for a promising start. And another, again, late round, you're talking a 6th rounder, 186th overall. Up next on the list, defenseman Loke Johansson. Did I say that one right?
Yes, you did.
Perfect. Always good to know that you nailed it. It looks like you have him slotted in for 2 goals and 11 assists.
Yeah, he's heading to the Moncton Wildcats. I spoke about him briefly last week, where he looked lost on the smaller ice surface. He was having difficulties, in the transition to the smaller ice. I think that may be a thing for a while for him. But he's not brought into Moncton to create offense or to play offensively. He's there as a physical shutdown defenseman. And, the Quebec League is known for offensive defensemen. You look at Frederic Brunet and what he did in his time at the Q as an example. But Johansson just isn't that type of defenseman. He has some of it in him. I just don't think we're gonna be seeing it this season.
Yeah. It'll be a tough season probably to start with, but I'm big on let's see what happens, especially for the way that it's set up right now, for a lot of these guys, because again, none of these guys have had a bar set for high expectations right off the bat. So
No,
it's
and
a common theme.
yeah, and everybody we've talked about so far is entering a new league.
Right.
So, it's all new to them.
Let's see. Here's one that I'm going to be very interested to watch, not just because of the numbers, but because of what his next steps in the growth of his game are. Christian Konstadinsky.
Yeah, so playing for Dubuque Fighting Saints in the USHL this season. I watched one of his exhibition games. He had some struggles, but surprisingly enough, he's going to put up a few points this upcoming season. It's nothing to get overly excited about or write home about, but it's a step in the right direction for him. What I'm looking for more from him is to see how he handles the smaller ice with that huge body. The skating, we know has been an issue, but may not be as much of an issue on the smaller ice because he won't have as far to go. So I'm excited to see how he does. By all means, doesn't mean he's going to be an NHL player. But the curiosity is obviously there for him.
Oh, yeah. And the desire to put the work in. I mean, we've had numerous conversations about his skating, how it needs improvement, how much it's gotten better, obviously how much work it still has. But, nothing is going to help him better than minutes in game. In-game
Right.
minutes. And seeing how, because like I pointed out, when he was at Dev Camp, when he wasn't focused and thinking about his skating, it definitely came more natural. So if he's been putting in the work over the summer to get better at the skating, and now it's starting to become a little more secondary nature to him, let's see how it implements into his game. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Again, you have him penciled in for 3 goals. What is that? 14 assists, it looks like.
Or 16. 16.
I don't see that being a problem. I mean, this isn't an offensive juggernaut defenseman. This is a guy who you're looking to maybe bring in 3 years, 4 years as a bottom pairing guy. If you end up pairing him up with, say, Jackson Edwards, this is a bruiser pair. This is a pair that you're going to put out there. I don't want to say to hurt the opposition because no one's rooting for injury, but you're sending them out there with a message that they are getting off the ice and their bodies are going to be sore as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get something serviceable out of them, and if you got 14 assists, 17, 20 points out of a third pairing defenseman at the NHL level, and he brought that kind of physicality, you're not complaining. So let's see if he can maintain some sort of consistency and obviously bring the elevated, we'll call it, skating to the game as well and not have it drop. Up next, Jonathan Morello, one of the higher overall productions that you have listed here. It looks like 18 goals and 26 assists for Morello.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's going to be low. I think he's going to kill it. He's been in 2 exhibition games now and has 1 goal, 4 assists already for, again, Dubuque Fighting Saints in the USHL. I don't know why, but that's what the model predicts for him. But I absolutely think he's going to kill it. I think a lot of the negativity when it comes to the model is jumping from the OJHL to the USHL. It doesn't always favor the guys who did that well in the O going to the USHL. And I must say, it didn't take into account his playoff performance in the OJHL last season as well. But I think this guy is just going to kill it with the Fighting Saints this year. I think those numbers are too low, and here I am knocking my own model here. But
well, like you said, the model is set to take into account certain things.
yeah,
And while you're sitting here looking at the numbers that the model spits out, you're also trying to put that asterisk next to it saying, this may not be accurate. It may be low. And this is someone that if he hits his numbers, that's great. He's on par with where he's projected. But if he far exceeds them, that means we might have to adjust his projection overall, because that's a whole season. Again, sample size matters. A whole season where his production has been much more than we anticipated. And like you said, going from one league to another, the model doesn't always account for it. That's where years of watching it, seeing where it might have a shortfall, and seeing the type of player that it has a shortfall for. I mean, let's also not forget that this is a well-built 18-year-old kid. He's 6 foot, a $170. Like, he's not small. He's got some size to him. So, and he's only 18. He's only going to keep getting bigger and stronger. So let's see how that progresses during the year for him. Let's take a look here at the next one. Was there any other thoughts on Morello for you, Dom?
no, I just wanted to get out there that I think that he's just going to. And you know what? 18 goals and 26 assists for a rookie is not bad in the USHL. That's what, 44 points in 60 some odd games. So it's not bad production at all. I have this feeling he's just going to easily surpass those.
Plus, it's his first year in the league. So, maybe he isn't as high as we thought this year. What's year 2 going to look like for him? That's the other question. This one I really like too. Jonathan Mirenberg. He's the defenseman that we got in the Jack Studnicka deal.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can. Nope, that's not what I wanted to maximize. I wanted to try and maximize the image, but that wasn't working. He was kind of throwing. I do worry about what's going to happen with his rights, but different conversation. You have him projected at 17 assists and 4 goals.
Just to compare to last year, going back a year, it had him projected at 2 goals, 11 assists, and he got 2 goals, 9 assists. So Mirenberg was right on the money pretty much last season. I think this is easily achievable for him. I just want to continue to see him grow as a two-way defenseman. He can lock it down defensively, transition the other way, and hopefully take on a leadership role. He's still young. He's still very, very young for the Swedish Hockey League. But if he can take on some sort of leadership role at this young of age, it just bodes well for him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to him. And again, he was a throw-in, so maybe they can try and flip him if they worry about his rights expiring. I'm really curious to see how he does this year and what it does to affect their plans, because this is someone that, defensively he's been solid, and just like, where does he fit in with this group right now? Because he doesn't, massive fines for him to come over sooner.
Yeah.
So
I would have liked to have seen him here for rookie camp, but their season starts next week, I believe it is. So it is what it is. But I think we're going to see him in North America. I really do.
Yeah, at some point, and that's the question is when, because I just don't know if it fits the Bruins timeline, and that's the unfortunate part. But we got Ryan Walsh. Did I say Riley? I meant Ryan Walsh. coming up next. 17 goals, 18 assists. Let's have you review Ryan, the correct Walsh.
Yeah. So last year we had him pegged for 9 goals. He got 12, and had him pegged for 17 assists. He got 10. So where it was predicted more, he was going to be more of a playmaker. He ended up being more of a goal scorer. This season, it's an even split for him, 17-18. 35 points as a sophomore. That's a very, very good season. Very, very good season. I think he's capable of hitting it. I'm pretty sure he will. And I think that we'll see him at Cornell for one more season before he turns pro.
Sorry, I'm trying to fix a couple things here on the back end because I'm not sure if people are trying to write in some questions. There's some alerts on my end that I want to try and get some folks to ask the questions that they might be having. So if someone could try to jot a comment in for me, that would be awesome, just so that I know they're working. But yeah, no, as I didn't mean to divert you there, Dom. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But with Ryan Walsh, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all of them do. As you know, this is going to be one of the heaviest years that I've ever had looking at some of the prospects and whatnot. So seeing what they're able to do this year and what jumps they make is really something that I'm looking forward to with all of them. And then up next, we have Mason Langenbrunner, 2 goals. What is that? 9 assists?
Yeah, 2 goals, 9 assists for Langenbrunner.
11 points overall for the season.
So difficult situation for him the last couple in Harvard. Not a very good team. Tasked with doing too much. I don't think he was tasked with it. I think he took it upon himself, and he had some struggles with that, as everybody else on the team. I just think at this point for Mason, on the right side, he's just been passed by so many guys. And if the Bruins continue to develop Edward as a right side defenseman as opposed to left, I don't know that there's a path for Langenbrunner there anymore. And it's too bad because he has some tools. He's just stuck in a really awful situation in Harvard.
Yeah, Harvard was definitely an interesting team to watch last year. I caught a couple of their games, and there were a couple other guys over there as well that were, Bruins draft property, and that checking them out has been interesting to see. It just, I don't know. I think they're going through some changes over there at Harvard. The good news, though, is we do have a question from Big Mike S13. He's bringing us back to Muhlenberg. That's totally okay. He asks, can they sign Muhlenberg and let him finish out his contract overseas and then bring him over? Do you want to just explain how the transfer would work and that sort of thing?
Mike, in fairness, you almost need a law degree now to read the transfer agreement between the NHL and the SHL. It's complicated. I've read it 20 times and I don't fully understand it. According from what I can make out, unless you're a first round pick, you cannot sign an NHL contract until you're 24 years of age. Unless you can get the player's team to release him from his contract, but you're responsible to pay the team for the remainder of that contract, plus all the transfer fees. So in other words, for the Bruins to get him out, it's going to cost him more than Muhlenberg's entry-level contract would be. So To answer your question, honestly, I don't know. The way I understand it is no, that they can't. And the problem with not being able to sign a player till they're 24 means you lose his rights. Like
He's already 21.
yeah. So I don't know. I'll have to get somebody with a law degree or somebody at the NHLPA or maybe an agent to explain it to me fully. But the way I understand it is no, they can't.
Yeah, because if you're going to lose that player's rights because you draft them at age 18 or 19 or 20, and then they can't even sign their ELC for 4 more years, like at a certain point, people are just going to stop drafting out of Swedish League. So there's no point. Or when they do draft them, they're going to draft the 24-year-olds who are hopefully more NHL ready. So it'll go one of those two ways. And maybe that's something that will change in the new CBA. Who the hell knows? Like, that'll constantly change and fluctuate. But when is that agreement set to be revisited, Dom? Do you know?
2026. But the CBA can't override the NHL's agreement with the SHL, the IHF, the CHL. It can't override any of those agreements.
No. What I mean is, like, the players may fight for a certain thing for the NHL to do in the agreement the next time it comes up. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
No, not like write something in the CBA that benefits the players in that circumstance. Or maybe there's a way where they can, if you're drafted out of a certain league, your contract can slide an extra X amount of years because of whatever. But a lot of the players are fighting to try to hit free agency sooner. So that's kind of the catch-22 there. It's kind of like deferred money. Most of the players want their money now. So
yeah.
Let's see. We just finished up Mason Langenbrunner. But it's still a great question. Appreciate the question. Up next is Casper Nason. 6 goals and 10 assists is what you have him projected for based on your model.
Yeah. So this is a guy I spoke about like 2 years ago. And a lot last year. It should be following in the path of Don Melis or Oscar Jelvik. And played in the J20 National last season. Had him projected for 26 goals. He scored 19 and 24 assists. He got 17. So he fell well short. Those projected numbers were on par with Melis and Jelvik. The problem is with Nason, he had a terrible first half of the season, then missed half a dozen games with injury, and then came back like a barn on fire, just lit it up. So his second half production would have spread out over the season, would have surpassed his projected totals. So I'm not sure where it compares to with what Oscar Jelvik did as a sophomore. But it's pretty much on par with what Don Melis did as a sophomore, where he got 7 goals, 7 assists. So I don't think those are out of the question numbers for Nason. He's going to have to transition to the smaller ice in North America again. He's a guy who can play all 3 forward positions, although I think left wing as a right shot is his best. But it remains to be seen where he's going to play, like what position and where in the lineup. But I think those will be respectable numbers if he reaches those.
Do you want Oscar Jelvik's first 2 season numbers?
If you have them in front of you.
His first season, which was 22-23, he played in 34 games, 4 goals, 13 assists for 17 total points. And then the following year, so this past year, 23-24, 41 games, 13 goals, 29 assists for 42 points in 41 games.
Yeah, so the 6 goals, 10 assists will put him on par with what Yelva did as a sophomore.
Right. And then if he can, relate with that and correlate with that, and then, obviously the next season, try to put him in that 38 to 42 point range. Similar to that.
I don't think Nason's capable of that, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see. Real quick, as a follow-up to our Muhlenberg conversation, Mike wants to know, would the Bruins end up losing his rights? Basically, if they wait till he turns 24, his rights would expire for the Bruins. How many years before that? They've got what?
His rights would expire June 1st of next summer.
So they've got 1 year.
25. Yeah.
And he can't sign a contract with them for another 3 years.
If I'm understanding the transfer agreement correctly, yes.
We will try to get clarifying information on that between now and next week, just so that we can better answer the question. But based on your interpretation, Dom, you're usually not that far off. So
I've been wrong before.
But usually you're much more accurate than people like to give you credit for anyway. So it's going to be an interesting answer, but we'll work on clarifying that as well. The next person up, let's get back to our projection, because I know people last week, the 2-hour episode, we're trying to cut that back a little bit here. The next one, believe it or not, we were just talking about Oscar Jelvik and Dan Lockmellis. So the two of them are next. Starting with Lockmellis, you have 12 goals, 22 assists.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing, like I mentioned earlier, the model last year had him for 21 assists, only has him for 22 this year. So it's hurting him for not meeting it last year, but it projected 8 goals and is only projecting 12 goals this season. If he reaches it, 34 points as a sophomore is very good production. Very, very good production. So I'm not going to knock her for being a little bit low as compared to last year. Maybe it was too high for him last year. But you have to consider he got third line minutes last year, playing exclusively down the middle, wasn't with the best offensive players. So a lot of his own offense he created himself, and it's probably why his apples weren't up there as it should be, because he wasn't really playing with 2 finishes. But right. I would be more than happy with 12 goals and 22 assists from him this season.
I think a lot of people would. I'm sure UMass would be happy with those numbers from him as well. So definitely an interesting local, if you're, local guy to watch if you're in the Mass area over at UMass Amherst. He's gonna be fun to watch if you can get out to see an Amherst game. So, and then the other one that we were up with was Oscar Jelvik. He's got the highest projected point total of 36 assists and 19 goals?
18 goals, 36 assists. And people say without Cutter Gauthier there, he's not going to make it. And like people I have talked to about this already. And like I mentioned last week, I think he's going to be the driver of the offense on whatever line he's on. And I think without Gauthier there, he's actually going to step up his game even more, knowing that he's got to be the guy that creates the offense for whoever he's playing with. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't reach those numbers. And those are big numbers. Those are big numbers. Those are 54 points in what is likely to be 43 games.
Well, yeah, and here's the other thing too: is he and Gauthier played the same position, and so when you also look at it, that top line was Will Smith, Cutter Gauthier, and Ryan Leonard. Ryan Leonard is still there. He had the same number of points as Ryan Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
The same number of assists, not the same number of points. They both had 29 assists. So if Gauthier is gone, Will Smith is gone, but Ryan Leonard is still there, Jelvik is still there, you're going to see someone up their production. And if he's on a line with a Ryan Leonard and someone else of that caliber, his game should elevate a little bit.
Oh, I no doubt. I would be surprised if it's not Andre Gassot on the line, but Gassot may be exclusively down the middle this upcoming season, so it remains to be seen.
Yeah, they have him listed on the left side based off of the roster from last year at Boston College, but I mean, obviously he has the ability to play down the middle as well. So it'll be interesting to see how. I mean, if he is in the middle of Ryan Leonard on one side and someone else on the other, then of course his assists should also go up and point totals should rise. So, obviously it's going to be fun to watch. So let's keep an eye on that and see if he can hit those totals. And then you mentioned Andre Gassot. So let's get into him next. It's projected for 16 goals, 21 assists. Another guy who, in theory, should be able to elevate his game a little bit.
Yeah, because he took a bit of a dip last year, but I think with the increased opportunities, from what I've heard from people that have watched him through the summer, he's really, really put in the work. He's worked on his skating, which has been an issue to some degree. So the increased opportunity, I think will bode well for him. I think the fact that he's put in the necessary work so far to improve himself is going to bode well for him. And I think that would be some nice production from him. It might be a little bit on the high side, but I think he can get close to it.
Yeah, I think he should be able to fill in. As they say, when people move on, someone's got to step up. So someone new coming in though, this year's first round draft pick, Dean Letourneau, again, someone we've been considering as a multi-year project for the Bruins, stepping in, projections, 6 goals, 11 assists. I think, just real quick, I think that would be a very successful season for him because, as we have pointed out a number of times, he has been playing at a high school prep level. He's not been playing juniors or, college. This is his first year of really playing with grown adult, men, if you will. He's been playing at a high school prep level. So,
yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed because I don't have a model that'll take a player from high school prep right to the NCAA and make a prediction for it. So I had to play around with things. Sorry, what's that, Chris?
But how often does it really happen? Is it worth a model for it?
Not very often. So I had to play with it a little bit, and that's what I come up with. The question with Letourneau is we still don't know where in the lineup he'll be playing, how high in the lineup, if at all, he'll be playing. I mean, there's one exhibition game where he played the left side. So a lot of questions still to be answered. But I echo Chris's comments that, I'd be fine with 6 goals, 11 assists as a sophomore, skipping junior hockey altogether and going straight to the NCAA.
We'll have to call it the Dean Letourneau model.
Yeah.
But it's I have a lot of similar questions with him making this jump, as weird as it is to say. I have a lot of the same questions about Justin Brazeau at the NHL level this year. Can he use his body the right way? His size. Does he know how to use it to beat the opposition along the boards, behind the goal, down low, getting to the puck first? Or is he just going to get bodied because he's up against players that are just better than him? Those are similar questions, just a couple years down the tracks. So, and I've had those questions about Brazeau for a while. I'm not just throwing that out there right now.
They're not new.
Jake Schmaltz next up on our list here. 5 goals, 16 assists in the projection here, and then we've only got a couple more left.
Jake was once considered a talented two-way player who could put up some points. He showed it in the USHL, even his first year in the NCAA, and then it's been just downhill. Like last year, he didn't score his first and only goal of the season till, I think 2 weeks before the season ended. And then only had 10 assists. So, he's taken on a shutdown role, but has he done enough in a shutdown role at this level to earn himself an NHL contract? Or is he going the way of Quinn Olson, Dustin McFall, Curtis Hall, and those types of players actually Hall did get an NHL contract, just wasn't renewed. So, I tend to think that this is his 4th year. He's a senior. So it's his last year, and I just don't see an NHL contract for him coming up.
Yeah, at least with the Bruins, I would agree with you. There might be another team. I mean, that's the kind of guy that maybe next year signs a PTO going into camp, or gets a camp invite or something like that. But it just doesn't seem to be there for an NHL future with the Bruins, at least. Moving on, we will take questions as we go as well. But if people want to save them till the end, that's fine. Up next, we talked a little bit about him before. Beckett Hendrickson, 11 goals for this year as his projection, along with that looks like 16 assists as well.
Yeah.
So 27 points.
Yeah. So I'm expecting, like I said earlier when we were talking about Pelosi, I'm expecting Hendrickson to transition to the NCAA with more ease than Pelosi. I mean, 27 points is nothing to scoff about as a sophomore. We know he's done it at the junior level. We know he's capable of it. And look, I've made no secret ever since the two of them were drafted in 2023 that I would have taken Hendrickson before Pelosi, or at least I would have reversed the 2 picks. It still remains to be seen, but everything to me tells me at this point that I would have taken, to this day, I still believe I would have taken Hendrickson before Pelosi.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately they both just care about getting to the big leagues, as they say. I don't think either one of them will really care who went first if they both are able to make it, but it's going to be an interesting path for both of them. I mean, if they both make it, do you care which one went first, or are you hold that against them?
No, I don't think the players would. It just, to me, Hendrickson has the higher ceiling.
I would agree.
And I think that's the point, the point I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, I would agree. Up next is a very interesting story for someone that I've been following now for a couple years. Defenseman Ty Gallagher. You have him projected at 5 goals, 16 assists. He's one that has been an anomaly on the projection board for the last couple seasons. You and I have talked about him at length. He is now transferred to Colorado College, and will hopefully not be a seventh defenseman or whatever role that was that Jay Pandolfo had him playing in. Does your model account for the transfer portal in the NCAA?
Yes, it does. And unfortunately, I think it's low. Like last year, the model had him for 7 goals, he got 0, and 26 assists, he got 5. All for the reasons that you so eloquently brought forward already. I think he may be good for 7 to 8 goals and 20 assists in Colorado. But he would really need a bounce back season. I'd be happy if he reached the 5 and 16. That's where predicts he'll come in at. Then I'm fine if he achieves that.
Yeah, his freshman year, he put up 35 points in 34 games. And again, we got to remember he's a defenseman. So, he had 16 points in 34 games. He had 35 penalty minutes. 16 points. He had 11 assists, 5 goals as a freshman. And then he kind of continued along that path. He played 6 additional games his sophomore season, 3 goals, 18 assists. So he bumped it up a little bit. And then all of a sudden it just fell off at 37 games played, 5 assists. Completely different role. So I can't help but agree with you that this projection might be a little low, especially once we see his time on ice and the type of usage that he gets. Again, we're not trying to sit here and say this guy is supposed to be as offensive as Cale Makar. That's not what I'm trying to say. The amount of time on ice and his usage, I think in his sophomore year, he probably got some time on the power play as well.
Yes, he did.
But the second power play unit, I think, is where he was. So this past year, I don't think he saw any power play time.
No.
I'd go back and look, but it was minimal at best. So if Colorado College uses him on the power play, maybe even on the first unit as opposed to no unit, these numbers could be very low for him. That's why I'm excited to see what he can do in a new environment, clean slate. We say it at the NHL level all the time, the player just needed a fresh start. Well, this is a player who's getting a fresh start while still developing. We know he had good tools before. And again, good tools in reference to the fact that this is a player who was selected in the 7th round, 217th overall. So what you're looking for is, did he already peak, or was this a blip in the radar that a fresh environment really just, he finds his game again, he is what he is, and that environment wasn't right for him? That's what you're looking for. Honestly, more important to me than
Exactly.
Let's see. We have one more name here. Or no, Ty Gallagher was the last one.
No, actually, there is a name that isn't on there. Just came up this weekend. Is Cole Spicer, who a couple of months ago took a leave of absence from hockey while he had to work some things out. Details unknown. But made a return this weekend with Dubuque Fighting Saints in the USHL. They now have him listed on their roster, at least for the exhibition season. They don't have their roster for the regular season out. So while we've been here, I've been projecting out his numbers in case he does play in the USHL this season, and have him at 19 goals and 29 assists. So in the exhibition game, he actually centered the first line with Jonathan Morello centering the second line.
I'm just going to throw this up here for people to follow along because we don't have it on the graphic for his projection. Sorry.
Yeah, that's it. We know he's making a return, so hopefully he makes the roster and sticks with them all season. I think he wants to get his grades up,
I was gonna say 'cause
work on it. Yeah.
Minnesota.
Sorry, go
Duluth.
ahead.
He was at Minnesota
Yeah.
Duluth before, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a perfect example of someone who, tries going down one path, discovers that it's not the right path for them to try and hit all their goals, and it's okay to pivot. If he can come in and get these projections or even close to them, honestly, if he got 15 goals and 24 assists, I would still take it given everything that his last 12 months has looked like for him. And what he's gone through, probably mentally, emotionally. I know he said that he had to take time away from hockey to kind of, self reevaluate some things and, get himself in a better mental state. So this is someone that you really want to root for to take those steps and still find. I mean, he's a 20-year-old kid, so as a 4th-round draft pick, he tried the college route. It wasn't the right route for him. So let's see if he can get it through this other path.
And a return to college is still possible if he gets his grades up. So the door's not closed on that.
Right. And it's just a matter of finding the right fit, too, because it just maturing and all the different things of being, again, 20-year-old kid. Like, we all were there, some of us further back than others, but you got to remember what you were ignorant to when you were 20 and off in college on your own for the first time. And he's also adding to it, trying to make the National Hockey League. That's a lot to juggle. So this is someone that you really also want to root for just on a personal level for their success as well. But he looked good when we did see him on the ice. So I'm hoping that he can, find his feet again.
Yeah, last year's development camp. By all, you were there, so
He looked good.
Yeah.
He looked like someone that could be, again, for a 4th-round pick, someone, left shot, down the middle, there's a future for him in the National Hockey League if he can find a way to work himself there. So, Dom, thank you for putting the projections together. I'm guessing the math is way more than what we want to get into. And way more boring than anything. So we appreciate you doing the math for us and whatnot. But what else from these non-pro? We're going to look at the pro ones, the Providence guys, the ones who are at the Prospect Challenge this week. We're going to look at them more starting next week, unless there's more on these guys that you want to get to next week first.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's going to be an interesting season. For those of you who want to get into watching it, if you go to Flow Hockey, you can now catch Providence and most of these guys on Flow Hockey. They do the college, they do the ECHL, they now do the AHL, and they do the USHL. So you'll get to watch every one of these guys play.
I already said mine.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like $209 Canadian a season. For me, I'm
$150 if you pay annually down here in the U.S.
Yeah, on $209 Canadian if you pay annually. So I just may send you some money and pay the U.S. Fee for me, Chris, so that I can save some bucks. But
Get that
no,
up for
seriously, it's if people can afford it and like watching hockey, I think it's a worthy investment. I hope that the Providence Bruins games will look much better than they did at
on AHL TV.
AHL TV, by all accounts, will be but it remains to be seen. And kudos to the guys that did the the Prospect Challenge stream. That was excellent. Good quality, excellent play-by-play. I'm hoping that that's something the Bruins realize now that fans want and will do it every year. But that's about it on these guys, Chris.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to diving into the Providence guys next week. That's a team that I know I'm going to be watching a lot more of this year, trying to get to a lot more games in person as well, just to try to see these guys up close for everybody who's tuning in, as well as for myself, too. There's a lot of guys that are going to be a lot of fun to watch on that teams. You know, you got your Kuntars, Duran, Jackson Edward is going to be just incredible fun to watch. Hopefully he can take a little bit out of his game, the right stuff out of his game, and stay on the ice.
I have to say, if we can swing back to the Prospects Challenge for a minute,
Absolutely.
is Charlie Hilton. Big scrap, big fight, 6'5" winger from the Ottawa 67s of the OHL. They're on an invite. He's actually looked pretty good for 2 games. Youngest player there turned 18 today. You know what that means? He only became eligible for last year's draft on the last day.
Wow. No wonder
Okay.
teams haven't really looked at him as a draft player.
No, and he only played like 40 games, so they didn't get a good look at him. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I put together a couple of tweets that said my off-the-wall idea, in brackets maybe, is to sign Hilton to a contract as an undrafted free agent, which they can do before the start of the OHL season. Sign him to a contract, send him back to Ottawa 67s for 2 years, and have his contract slide. So you're not burning his contract. You're not paying any money unless there's signing bonuses there. And in 2 years, he's done, and he's already under contract and goes to the American Hockey League, which would have the first year slide because he signed as an 18-year-old. So you're getting him 3 years for free and then 3 years on an entry-level contract. And his agent replied to me, I like that idea.
Yes, I remember. I saw that. It's one of those things where that's a win for the player because he's got a contract.
Mm-hmm.
It's a win for the team because they have a player that, like you said, the contract slides for 3 years. They're not going to go against their contract count for right away.
3 years.
So that works for them too because they have someone they have the rights to that they can continue to develop. And let's face it, we know that Sweeney and his team like guys who aren't far away. And no, it's not Boston College. It's not BU. It's not their backyard. But Ottawa's not crazy far from Boston either. They can go up and they can take a look at this kid with the 67s frequently, we'll call it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I have 100% trust in Bob Whittick, their OHL scout. And if he sees something there, I'm sure he's whispering in Donnie Sweeney's ear.
I also want to point out, too, for those who are unfamiliar with him, big body forward, too. 6'5", 200-plus pounds. And he's only barely 18. 18, you said today. Today. So if he's already 6'5" and 200-plus, he's still likely going to grow a little bit. Maybe not a lot, but a little bit. And if you can get him under contract as an 18-year-old and he can hit the pro level for you as a 21-year-old, that's a pretty damn good path and one that a lot of players would sign on for at the age of 18.
Yeah.
And it would go to show other players that you want to bring in on PTOs for invites for these camps, that there's a path. If you go and you do well and teams like what they see from you, even though you are an invite, you can still have a path to the NHL because of that invite.
Yeah, I mean, they did it with Kyle Kaiser. It didn't work out. It should have worked out, but injuries got in the way there. So the Bruins have been known to do it, just not very frequently.
Yeah, Kaiser was another one they lost this summer because of, bodies and probably an opportunity to play too. A lot of people who follow along with the prospects probably remember the name Kyle Kaiser as well. So, anyways, we are about 20 minutes away from the 8 o'clock hour here on the East Coast, which is usually when we end our What's Brewing show. So that's kind of the time frame we look to around here for this one as well. But with that said, I mean, like you said, Prospect Challenge is winding down. Training camps are right around the corner. Next week, we're going to look at the pro guys and kind of what their camps look like so far. Preseason games are literally right around the corner, if you can freaking believe it.
I think camp opens Wednesday, right?
I believe so. I'm looking at it right now.
I think that's just the medicals, though.
I think the medicals are going to be Wednesday the 18th. They'll probably do some off-ice stuff the 19th and the 20th would be my guess. And then the 23rd is, I think, when they're really going to ramp up and do 2 sessions, a morning session and an afternoon session or something like that. And then the preseason games, if I remember correctly, the first one is Saturday the 28th, right?
I believe it's... Yeah, against the Rangers, is it not? I believe. No. I can't remember now.
I'm trying to pull it up real quick. No, Saturday the 21st against... Oh, no, that's the Penguins Sabres. Let's see. Preseason is on the 22nd, a week from today. Boston against the Rangers at the Garden. 5 p.m. a week from today.
Wow.
So we'll have to figure out if we want to go on after the game, before the game, maybe slide it a day and do Monday that week. We'll make an announcement once we figure that out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
So with that, though, Dom, I know it's getting a little later on our end, and the chat's been a little quiet for this episode, but we do appreciate everyone who has tuned in. We've gotten a lot of great feedback overall on the show. We definitely want to continue that and see if there's anything else that people want to see improved upon. One successful note, we've already been able to shorten the show a little bit because with the projections, we flew right through them.
Yeah, and for those that are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and those on YouTube who had a hard time reading that chart, it'll be on Dom.Hockey tomorrow morning, the written version of this. It doesn't go into as great detail as we did tonight, but you can find it there tomorrow morning on Dom.Hockey.
Also, there were some folks, let's see, Shaz also is saying, the 24th is the first game. There were some folks who pointed out that there were some audio issues on a couple different platforms. Definitely tried to make some adjustments to see if we can try and eliminate that. So if we can get a little follow-up on that, if you had those experiences, just let us know, reach out like you did before. Let us know if there's any improvement to that or if it's still kind of status quo, so we know if we're headed in the right direction with the audio platforms as well. With that, though, Dom, I think I'm out for the night. It's been an exhausting 48 hours, so then I'm not thinking, please speak up. But
no, I don't blame you, man. You must be tired. With that, I'll just say hope everybody tunes in Tuesday night for the What's Brewing podcast at 6:30. Hopefully Chris will have some sleep by then and have all his boxes unpacked.
Packing won't be done, that's for damn sure, but I will have had more sleep. I promise you that. So we'll have a lot on that episode because we got camp starting soon.
Yes.
So with this episode, I'm going to say go Bruins prospects.
Go Bruins prospects.